and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another fantastic installment from very, very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday.
You want to go back and try that again?
No, I don't. You know, Ken, there is something to be said for living rent-free in every redcoat's head.
I wouldn't know.
Well, I don't know, Ken. You're pretty popular in the media. But however, I, your illustrious host, your fantastic host of this program, I think I really do live rent-free in some of these redcoats' head. Would you like some evidence of that?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm fine. I didn't even want to come in today.
No? Why not? Because you knew what was going to happen.
I knew where you were going to go, and it just seems like there ought to be a story out there.
Worthy of starting.
Worthy of,
there is.
Yeah.
There is, actually.
There was an article, had absolutely nothing to do with me, but somehow I got
thrown into the middle of it?
Thrown into the article on the, well, it's the one in the Cow Pie about the rematches.
Oh, yeah.
And somehow I made it back into that article.
Well, it's because you sell papers or clicks or whatever the case is.
I asked the Sheridan Press photographer last night, I said, where's my name, image, likeness bonus check? I haven't seen it yet.
Well, it's $30,000, and it's coming from the Freedom Caucus. That's what they're hoping on.
It'll have Vaseline all over it.
Yeah, well, it will. Yeah, that was a great podcast. All right, so welcome to the program, my friends. We've got a lot to talk about today. There was a forum in Sheridan last night, a marathon legislative forum. Frankly, Ken, I am amazed that you got out of bed this morning. That thing went on for 2 hours, 40 minutes. At one point, I was waiting for the host to say, okay, one more question. But she never did. She just let it go on.
We had agreed to appear from 6 to 9, but at 9:01, I was prepared to exit.
Well, that was a dumb decision on your part. You should have just said, well, I'm good until 8, and then I got to go to bed. Because that thing, it went on and on and on. And most of what happened last night was explaining. Now, Agent 29, he doesn't... Lucy! You got some explaining to do. But generally speaking, my friends, if you are explaining, you're losing. If something has happened and you have to give this long, tortured explanation of what happened, or your version of it, whatever, you're losing. Because you think that you've already lost the narrative. And that, I think, was the top story from last night, in that the legislators, not Agent 29. Agent 29 was the star of last night's program, but the main storyline was explaining. Legislators would get questioned. Hey, okay, so we're irritated about election integrity, and I thought that question was great. One of the questions from the crowd was about election integrity. And the way that it was phrased was, okay, 3 years ago, we were told, well, this is a budget session. You know, we just don't have enough time to get to those topics. And then the next year was a general session. And then what we heard was this isn't ready for prime time. Well, then, of course, last session, it was another budget session. And so, and this was right in the middle of Bo Beitman, explaining why they just couldn't get to a whole bunch of bills. And the questioner, the member of the audience, said, "We're tired of 3 years worth of excuses." And I thought that was fantastic, because that's what you get from a lot of these legislators.
I just want to make it clear from the onset of this show, this gave me no delight.
No, I'm sure it didn't.
It really, really doesn't. I watched with dismay how things operated in the Senate from when they first announced who was involved with each committee. The committee assignments came out, and I told myself, this is going to be a long year.
You said this is going to take a while.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and the truth is, your elected officials have to be held accountable, and whether they do good or they do ill, it's our job as citizens to hold them accountable. And that was a lot of what happened last night. Though there was a lot of really good information, I thought. I did think that you guys had quite a bit of good discussion back and forth on different positions. And to my great surprise, one of the people that didn't tell that many stories was Poison Barry Crago. Usually he's good for at least one whopper or two.
He didn't have to say a lot. I said one thing early on that I want to preface here too. There's a lot of noise in the press about how fractured the legislature is. And yes, there are some schisms, there are some divisions, some disagreements, but I don't think that's anything new. I've said to you several times, I have to work with these people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I do. And I think we're able to work effectively together quite a bit. And the best example of that, Bo mentioned when the JCC came together, Joint Conference Committee on the budget. It took us about 2 hours to
hammer
2 to 3 hours
everything out.
Behind closed doors, kind of talk about where we all stood, kind of came to some agreements, and then we got together publicly the next day and walked through it pretty fast. And there was a lot of cooperation. There was a JCC on a construction bill. I sat down with Mike Giroux, sat down with Ogden Driscoll, and we were able to work through some things pretty quickly. So I just, for my part, I needed to say that
Sure.
it is not, it's stressed, but it's not dysfunctional.
No, I don't think that it's entirely dysfunctional. I do, however, think that there are a lot of people who have let's just say that they have a very loose relationship with the truth. And we're going to get to a lot of that today. I've got some sound bites queued up and several different things to talk about. So that's going to be a good topic of conversation. However, we're going to begin this morning with what today is. Yes, it's true. It's tax day. Or should I say legalized larceny day. That's how Calvin Coolidge put it. He suggested that if you collect any more taxes than are absolutely necessary, that it is legalized larceny. And April 15th, well, that's tax day. Today is tax day. And, without a doubt, our government spends way too much money. Regardless of what your congresspeople or your legislators tell you, we spend too much darn money. And the truth is, and I thought you made a really good point last night, Ken, that if we continue on our current rate of spending, and I'm talking about the state of Wyoming right now, that and I think you said by 2029-ish, we're going to be in around a $700 million deficit.
That wasn't my point.
No, that was
LSO. And a lot of people, it's even come out in the press. Well, according to Pendergrass figures, no. This is LSO projections. It's like that check engine light. If we don't change something, we're going to have trouble.
Yeah, and I thought it was great that you had that memo I guess it would be a memo, worksheet, spreadsheet, whatever you want to call it, from the Legislative Service Office that listed the budget
I got a whole
projections on it.
stack of them, but nobody asked.
Well, I mean, I thought it was good because you were able to hold it up and say, according to this, which this comes from the LSO, this is what it says. So there was a lot of stuff last night, but let's stay on April 15th. So in Major League Baseball, April 15th is Jackie Robinson Day. And this is just a piece that I grabbed from Yahoo Sports. And this is why it begins. Now, so, quote, why is April 15th Jackie Robinson Day? When every Major League Baseball player wears the number 42, there's never going to be another day like it in baseball history. It's the day that Jackie Robinson made his MLB debut with the Brooklyn Dodgers. It's the day that Robinson broke MLB's color barrier. It's the day that Robinson opened the door to Major League Baseball that had been slammed shut for so long. It came with hatred and danger for Robinson, but he emerged as one of the greatest baseball players. I don't know that. I mean, he was great, but I don't know that I would say he was like the greatest of all time. And I'm gonna, I mean, there are some other people that are very deserving of recognition that were not in Jackie Robinson's place. But today he was the first one, and I think as a baseball fan, it's a pretty cool day. So let's see here. What else we got? Let's go here. So let me put this on the screen for you. So just his career stats, since we're talking baseball. So over his career, he had 947 runs scored, 1,518 hits, 734 RBIs, and the big number that everybody gets excited about is 137 home runs. And he really didn't play for that long, so 9 years in the majors. A lot of players, they don't have a career that's any more than a few years. Some of the veterans, 10 and 12 and sometimes 20 years. I mean, people like Nolan Ryan, Nolan Ryan's one of the only players to play in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so, but, when it comes to Jackie Robinson, he had already had quite the career in baseball prior to being in the major leagues. That he played for a long time in what was called the Negro Leagues. So pretty cool day, pretty cool piece of history. But there's also another person that I want to tell you about here. Let's see if I've got it in my stack. Yeah. So there's some other really great baseball players that played in the Negro Leagues that really didn't get all that much recognition. And one of them is a catcher named Josh Gibson. Josh Gibson, in my mind, is the greatest catcher of all time. A lot of people think of people like Johnny Bench or Mike Piazza as great pitchers or great catchers, and they were. But Josh Gibson, I think that Josh Gibson is the one on the left. It's Jackie Robinson in the middle. But Josh Gibson, just a little bit about him. He played primarily in the Negro Leagues. In 1972, he became the second Negro League player to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's see here. He played for the Homestead Grays from 1930 until 1931, and then he moved to the Pittsburgh Crawfords from 1932 to 1936, and then returned to the Grays from 37 to 39, and then from 42 to 46. In 1937, he played for the Dominican League, and so he just kind of moved around. But you don't think of, I mean, most people when they think of, like star legendary baseball players, they think that they played for one team. And the reality is very few baseball players spend their entire career with just one team. So Gibson was known as a power hitter, and he has the record for the highest single season batting average of 466. Holy crap. People like, oh man, like I mentioned Mike Piazza, or you can think of Jose Canseco, or even Joe DiMaggio did not have a batting average of 466.
I had a batting average close to that in the softball.
underhanded pitch. He also has the highest career batting average of 371, which is a huge number too. So, but he while I think that he was a better baseball player than Jackie Robinson. He didn't get the nod. And then there's another guy named Satchel Paige. A lot of people have heard of Satchel Paige. Great pitcher, and he actually did play in the major leagues. Let's see here. He had a career that spanned 5 decades, and he's also in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's see here. Just a blurb I found online about him. He's a right-handed pitcher. He first played semi-pro for the Mobile Tigers from 1924 to 1926. His professional career began with the Chattanooga Black Lookouts of the Negro Southern League and became one of the most famous and successful players in the Negro Leagues. At age 42 in 1948, Page made his MLB debut with the Cleveland Indians. And to this day, this makes him the oldest person to debut in the National or in American League history. So, in other words, he was a 42-year-old rookie. Obviously not a rookie because he'd played, professional ball in the Negro Leagues well before that. But as far as a rookie in the majors, well, he was 42 years old.
I need to correct my statement earlier. Yeah. That was actually T-ball. I hit 460.
466 in T-ball?
No, it was only 460. But
okay, all right. Well, you can't outshine Josh Gibson. Another cool thing about him, listen to this, Ken. Page was 59 years old when he played his last major league game. Imagine that, 59 years old, and he's still playing in the major leagues, which is also a record that stands to this day. He was the first black pitcher to play in the American League and was the 7th black player to play in Major League Baseball. Let's see here. Really cool guy. And show my screen again, if you would, Ken. Satchel Paige he's the guy on the right. So, really, there was a lot of really cool players in the Negro Leagues that never really got any recognition. And, it was a different time. Now, here, one other thing that I want to mention about, the Negro Leagues and, baseball, early Major League Baseball, is you have this mistaken impression that, okay, they weren't throwing as hard. The players were not as athletic as they are today. That's not true. So the average fastball of a pitcher was still around 90 miles an hour. There were a lot of players that would be able to pitch with some of the greatest players that we have today. Some of the hitters like Babe Ruth. So 61 home runs in a single season. There are not that many people that have been able to hit that many home runs. And it is, when you dig into it, again, you have this mistaken impression that guys like Jackie Robinson or Josh Gibson or Satchel Paige, that somehow they were less athletic than players today. And that's just not true. Not at all. So anyway, there you go. Baseball history. It's Jackie Robinson Day. So do yourself a favor, turn on a baseball game today and watch an inning or two. It's cool. It is America's pastime. And it's, as you can tell, I'm kind of a baseball nut. All right, so let's get to the number one thing on my agenda today, and that's the forum last night. And I want to preface this by saying, when you do this job, there are topics where you talk about them so much that you just get tired of them. That it comes up so often, you're like, God, can I just talk about something else? Well, one of those is House Bill 10. And you've heard me mention it a lot. We've had Representative Lucas on the program a couple different times to talk about House Bill 10. And I say all this to explain that sometimes my perspective is a little bit different than somebody else's, because I talk about these things every day. And, I get tired of them. But there are still some issues that are pretty raw with Wyoming citizens. And one of those is definitely House Bill 10.
So you need to mention what House Bill 10
I'm about to,
even though you have spoken a lot about it.
So that is the pornography in libraries bill. And it's, and there's been a couple different versions of it. This House Bill 10 was this year's iteration of it. And so the first soundbite I've got for you. Oh, wait. Before we get there, I just have to play one little soundbite for you. You know, it's fun to live rent free in somebody's head. So go ahead and play. Uh, tell us about the favorite podcast, Ken. Go ahead and play that one for us.
Be careful. There's a lot more to the story than what you hear on your favorite podcast or anything else.
Living rent free.
How do you know he
Dennis's
was talking
head.
about you?
I'm pretty sure he was talking about me, just like this one. Play the Chief Justice soundbite for me.
Recently heard a podcast that had a lot of misinformation.
Yes.
Correct information.
Okay.
The Judicial Nominating Commission is equal parts citizen.
You know you've made it when politicians feel the need to rebuff what you say at public forums or in the speech to the entire legislature.
And you're on the bingo card.
And you're on the bingo card. It's true. Yeah, so I had to chuckle when that one came out. But, I what he was doing was deflecting. And Dennis was getting hammered over House Bill 10. And it was to say, oh, that guy that talks on that podcast, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. But at least he said your favorite podcast. So there is that. So where I want to start is the soundbite that's called Dennis and House Bill 10. And there's two versions of this. And we're probably going to have to do a stop and start. So go ahead and play Dennis and House Bill 10. We'll listen to that one for a little bit. And then we'll stop and talk about it.
Senator Craigo and Representative Connolly both voted against it, all votes. I know that oh my gosh, Senator Biden voted for it, but killed it. And I'd like to know why the two of you voted against it and why it was killed. It's not really the sexually explicit material bill. It is not very controversial. We don't allow our children to drink. We don't allow them to go to X-rated movies. We don't allow a lot of things for them. But somehow or another, you guys think it's okay to pay for this garbage in our libraries. And I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. And Senator Craigo, you introduced, before the bill was swept under the rug, a amendment to, I think it was you, and if it wasn't you, I apologize. But the amendment was to what's the word I'm looking for? For the county commissioners to be able to exempt public libraries from this bill. And I'd like to know why.
Okay, so pause right there for me, Ken. So it's kind of a long-winded question, but I think you can hear in her voice that, as a parent, she's very concerned as to why the legislature would let this thing go through. And to be absolutely clear, there were a lot of bills that day that died in the Senate. Here in just a second, we're going to play for you the part where Dennis is trying to explain away what happened. But first, here's what Poisonberry Craigo had to say. I think he's first. Go ahead and hit play.
First,
No, it's Dennis first.
I did not kill House Bill 10.
Somebody did.
One person did not kill the bill. That bill did not come up on committee of the whole. The majority floor leader is in charge of committee of the whole. The majority floor leader sets the schedule of bills and arranges the bills in the order that she deems fit. She had whip counts on all the controversial bills on the last day of general file. For time management.
Okay, so stop right there. Let's explain what's going on here. So House Bill 10 passed the House of Representatives with, let's see here. It passed the House 48-13. 48-13, and that includes 6 Democrats. Okay, so there were 7 Republicans that voted against this bill. And you can imagine, the very liberal people that did that. But 48 people in the House of Representatives voted on this thing. Now, what does it mean? Like, Ken, could you explain for me, like, he's saying it didn't come up on the last day of committee of the whole. All right, were there other opportunities to bring this thing up, or I mean, what was going on there?
I don't remember how long that thing sat in the drawer, but it was some time. It sat over there and could have been brought up at any time, and they chose not to. You'll hear Bo's explanation here shortly, but one thing he said that I would take a little bit of issue with is that one person cannot kill a bill.
He can.
Absolutely, he can, and there are several one persons, and there are a mere committee chairman can kill a bill.
Yes.
Just decide to hold it. So that was not quite an honest answer in my view.
Well, and if you'll notice, he mentions Slithers. That's when he says majority floor leader. That's Senator Slithers. He mentions her a lot. Well, she didn't decided not to bring it up. She had a whip count. The majority floor leader is in charge of
He's
that.
the Senate president. Whatever happens over there is his baby.
Yes, absolutely. And if you think for a second that there was some sort of big disagreement about this, I think you're probably incorrect. So go ahead and
that maybe not. And I'm trying to be fair and honest.
The views of the host are not necessarily
they're
the views of the
they're
producer.
not. But I was a little bit disappointed when Bo said that he had basically begged the floor leader. Traditionally, if the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House goes to their majority floor leader and says, "This is what we need to happen," that's what happens.
Yes. It's
and it may well be that she was able to resist him despite of what he wanted, that's part of the problem in my view.
Yeah, I mean, if that is true, there's a bigger problem with Dennis Beitman's leadership than just him voting 56% of the time with, or voting 43% of the time with the Democrats. If he wanted that bill to come up, I think there's a good argument to say that he could have made that happen. Let's go ahead and continue with his answer.
All the bills that we're probably going to pass first, but all the bills that definitely we're not going to pass. I think that bill had 13 ayes and a lot of more noes. So I pleaded with the majority floor leader that morning to hear all the bills.
Pleaded.
We talked to the House leadership that couple of times, the night before and during the day, about kind of how are you guys going to go? Are you going to hear all the bills? Are you going to cut off at a certain time? And he said, no, we're going to.
Sorry, I just had to pause that.
I'm sure you did.
There's a couple of things there. He's the one that appointed Senator Nethercott.
Yes. Well, I mean, okay, so
that was part of the deal.
Yeah, the caucus votes, and he made a deal.
Ultimately, it is the president's baby, and the buck stops there. And apparently, this was somebody that I won't say he couldn't control, but they couldn't work together to get done. Well, they didn't have the same view.
Well, okay, yeah, we can go that far. But like I said before, if he really wanted this bill on the floor, you would think that he could make that happen. And if he couldn't, if there was some sort of disagreement and Slithers just said, no, we're not doing it, that's a bigger problem.
The time management argument, as far as we didn't have the votes to bring it, that's a valid argument.
Yeah.
But when you look at all of the bills they had to look at and how much time they actually had at their disposal versus how much time they actually used to hear them,
we're getting there.
There's some dissonance there. So yes, you want to go through the bills that you can get passed and get them done and out of the way. That's fine. But you still got some time left, and it's always good to allow them to get on the floor, to allow people to make that argument so the people back home can see where people fall. And I think that's what they didn't want to have happen, is they didn't want to be called out into the sunlight. I'm just guessing.
They didn't want what's happening right now to happen, during the session. They didn't want to be on the record about it. But in the end, that ended up happening anyway. But let's continue with Dennis.
She said we're going to hear them all. I said, okay. So I went back, tariffs. Are we going to hear them all? No, these bills are going to die. I don't want to waste time on these bills. Wow. It's just a waste of time. And so I pleaded with her in my office, and I lost.
Okay, so stop. Did you hear him say, We went in my office and we talked about it. So Bo is giving this long, tortured explanation, and he does it twice. I've got the second part of it queued up for a little bit later on. But he says, well, we went in my office and we talked about it. And he makes it sound as though we just didn't have the time. You know, we wanted to get through the bills that we could get passed, and the ones that we knew that we didn't have the votes on, well, we weren't really going to vote on those. Well, let me just give you a glimpse into what was going on. So he says they went in his office. Wonder what they were doing in there. He didn't mention this little party, did he? Uh-oh. What are they doing? Well, they're having a pizza party. Now, there's a couple of people in here. This is interesting. You've got Chris Rothfuss on the right. You have Dennis there feeding his face. That's Stacy Jones. There's Poisonberry Crago. And that little guy there in the middle, that's Apollo Pizzell. Apollo Pizzell is a registered lobbyist who apparently also moonlights as a legislative aide. But lobbyists are not allowed inside the Senate chamber. I mean, down on the floor. And the other guy standing up there looking at the camera, apparently that's Bo Beitman's photographer. At least he was last night. That's Joey Carenti, who is also a legislative aide. But you notice that Dennis didn't bring up that he had a little pizza party in the middle of this. He also didn't bring up these. So show them this one. So when one of the chambers takes a break, they put up this little screen, and it just says, hey, the Senate is in recess until 2:20. Well, then they went a little bit past 2:20, and then their recess turned into 4:30. And then they went a little bit past 4:30, and their recess turned into 5. The truth is, the Senate took several different breaks that afternoon. The last day for committee of the whole, and if it was a time crunch, you would think that they wouldn't be taking pizza parties and breaks all afternoon, which they were.
So during that time, I had some business in the Senate chamber. We were working on the arrangements for a joint conference committee, and I ran into Tara. I ran into her 3 times. And each time she was very angry with me. She said,
what, Slithers mad?
No. She said, you need to get control of your chamber. She said, you're a leader of the Freedom Caucus, which is not a formal position, but I won't argue what she was trying to say.
Okay.
But anyway, you need to get control of your chamber because they're in there wasting time.
Uh-huh.
So 2 responses to that. Number one, the people that were wasting time, and you know this, you were there watching, were Steve Harshman, Lloyd Larson, the usual, just trying to gum up the work.
Wait a minute, hold on. So by wasting time, you mean talking endlessly on the floor.
Yes.
You don't mean hanging out in the office having a pizza party or taking a break.
No. We were on the floor. We were doing
Yes.
the debate. But the people that were gumming up the works and were slowing it down were not us. Now, in order to stop debate, you have to have 2/3 vote. We didn't have that vote. We had no choice. We were held there. And so basically, we just agreed, okay, you go ahead and talk. We're just going to sit here until 2 in the morning if we need to.
Right.
We're going to finish. And we did. So she's basically accusing us of wasting time in there, and we're not going to get, she says, you guys aren't going to get to those bills, so why should we? It was basically her attitude. Those weren't her exact words. So I mentioned a particular senator who was, I believe it was Mike Giroux, Democrat, was standing up, reading the reviser's bill word for word, and her response was, well, he just thought he was being funny.
Yeah. Okay, so remember, this is the last day of that a bill can be heard on committee of the whole in the second chamber. So a House bill that comes over has to be heard first. It first goes to committee, and then it goes onto the floor for committee of the whole. But on March 3rd, which was the last day, this is the last chance they had to hear any of those bills. And here is what Mike Giroux was doing. We'll just watch a little bit of this one, Ken, if I can get it to play.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Giroux? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would, let's see, what do I want to do? I want to
You got to move the
move,
bill.
I want to move. Yeah, good. House Bill
44.
44, the reviser's bill.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and ask for your favorable consideration.
Great. You want to explain it to us,
I'd love
Senator?
to, I'd love to.
Maybe
Also,
start on
there's
page
a-
1.
There's actually a standing committee amendment I'd like to have read in at this time.
Standing Committee Amendment.
House Bill 44, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, page 4, line 17.
So I just want to throw this in there. If you understand what the reviser's bill, basically this is just fix all the scrivener's errors, the typos or whatever. It's all that. It's a formality. It's a gimme. Generally, it doesn't take more than a few seconds of attention. And when you watch what they're doing there, this is a mockery.
Yes.
And of course, okay, I can see sometimes you're going to try to be funny. I'm okay with that. Okay, the joke's over.
Okay, so
And it
again,
continues.
to put this in context,
Yes.
this is the last day
Yes.
for Committee of the Whole. So all of those important bills, and we've got another soundbite that I'm going to play later on in the program. That is, look, it was a list of all of these bills that died along with House Bill 10. Now, the reviser's bill, when this thing comes up in the House, almost all the time, it is just a formality. It is, hey, here's the reviser's bill, and it really is just corrections, is all it is. Spelling errors, page numbers, numbering errors.
LSO goes through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and then they accumulate all of whatever
Whatever they
typos.
find.
Yeah, and then when it's all done, one of the last things you do is stamp that, and they clean
Yeah,
it up.
and literally it comes up in the House that, okay, this is the reviser's bill. Anybody want to debate? No? Okay. All in favor? Aye. And then they move on. That is not what happened in the Senate. Let's play a little bit more of this, and then we're going to have to go to a break.
Just double checking, was there a Standing Committee Amendment? You said Standing Committee Amendment. There's not. So we have a Committee of the Whole Amendment. Would
Committee
you
of
like
the
to
Whole.
move that?
I would like to move that.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yes, and ask for your
Considering that
favorable
it's-
consideration as well.
Since the Standing Committee didn't even get the chance to do their little amendment on this because this was untimely ripped,
Well, and
just
I-
like Macduff.
Exactly. And
There
so
you go.
now-
Back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring you House Bill 44, the reviser's bill. As you can see, as we take a walk through this wondrous little bill, this is the bill that kind of corrects all corrections, takes care of all our small mistakes, technical corrections, small and large, mostly small. So let's take a look, shall we?
Everybody in that
Section
room
1
is
on
well
page
aware.
1 talks about the
Yes.
citations and where we're headed for these corrections. Then if you turn your attention to page 2, it says donation of emergency responder equipment, exemption of civil and criminal liability definitions in relations to other law. You skip down to line 8 and you'll see that we've deleted some of the sites.
Okay, all right, all
on
right.
that.
So, I mean, that's enough of that. And we can sum it all up to say he read the bill word for word on the floor. And again, this is the last day that you can hear any of those bills from Committee of the Whole, and he just says, well, we're going to waste time and read this entire bill, something that just should be a formality. So, and you're going to hear an argument later on in these sound bites to where it's, we just didn't have enough time. We couldn't get to all of them. Some things had to come before others, and we just couldn't make it happen. Well, none of
Pizza,
that is
pizza.
true. It's
Pizza,
just
pizza.
it's just frankly not true. All right, so let's go ahead and take a break. We're way long, and when we come back, we'll continue. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday. I'm David Iverson, your illustrious host. Welcome back to the show, my friends. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everything you do for the program. I know we throw a lot of content at you, and you can find all of it on the multiple social media outlets that we have. So before the break, we were right in the middle of a soundbite from Dennis Bo Beitman at last night's forum in Sheridan. And he's in the middle of explaining, trying to explain away why they didn't get to House Bill 10, the pornography in libraries bill. So Ken, go ahead and hit play again.
I did not kill this.
I apologize.
Okay. There's a lot of bills like that you just run out of time. I mean, everybody wants their bill to pass. In a budget session, you have, in our case, we have 22 calendar days. You cut off the first 2 days where nothing gets done because it's all pomp and circumstance, and the last 2 days we're just sitting around waiting for conference committee reports and veto overrides. The meat of the session is in those 2 weeks in the middle. And that's where all the action happens. And you're doing the budget. And this year we had recalibrations going on. And Jetgate happened. All at the same time.
Very, very busy, Ken. Very, very,
in fact, we were
very
able to
busy.
get all the bills on the last day of committee of the whole that we did. The Senate got 15 bills done. We started
Yeah,
committee
they
of
got
the
15
that
whole
morning
bills done.
at about 11 a.m. We went till 12, took our normal lunch break, 12 to 2. We came back. We worked committee of the whole bills till about 4. I had members come to me because the House was still on third reading. They hadn't even started committee.
Yeah, you guys are wasting time.
Members of mine were concerned that the House was dragging their feet on purpose. They would say, you go talk to the speaker.
That was the other
Sure,
side dragging their feet.
Joyful of your policy. We all three of us went down to the speaker's office, said, hey, we got members that are worried that you're dragging your feet out of these bills. What's the latest? He's like, no, we're gonna finish up third, and we're gonna go straight into committee of the whole, and we're gonna work all night. I said, okay. We went back, we talked to our members, let them know everything was going on, so we let the House catch up to the Senate. The House and Senate are supposed to be moving at the same pace.
Yeah.
So we let them catch up to us, and then we went back into committee of the whole, and we worked till about 9 o'clock, and then we gavelled out. The motion was made to come out of committee of the whole right before House Bill 10 came up.
Okay, now listen to
And
this.
because that was the start, that was the first bill of all the bills that were gonna fail. Nobody objected. Anybody could stand up and say, I object, and it only takes a majority vote to stay in committee of the whole and keep working bills. Nobody made that objection. Wasn't until the next day, when people were taking shots at the majority leader for stopping us on committee of the whole, anybody could have.
Okay, so stop. So wait a minute. First he says, anybody could have objected and we could have, continued debating bills. I have never seen that happen. Well, I shouldn't say that. I saw it happen once last session. Was it yeah, I think it was last session.
It happened in the House.
Yeah, when Chip stood up and he said, move to rise and report. and there was an objection there.
Yep, and we went back to work.
And you went back to work. Okay, so Dennis makes, I need to back up on that. So yeah, I have seen that happen. But Dennis is making it sound like, well, look, and nobody wanted to talk about this. And then in the very next breath, he says that the majority floor leader was taking shots about gaveling us out. Why was she taking shots about stopping committee of the whole debate? Because there were bills like House Bill 10 that they didn't get to. So you notice that in one breath, he says, well, it's everybody else's fault. They didn't want to talk about this. Nobody objected. And in the very next breath, he says, well, the majority floor leader was taking shots, so we had to vote on this again. Continue.
Then we had to make a motion to suspend the rules, which is a 2/3 vote, in order to bring that bill up and a couple others. We tried, we failed. We used the process to get those bills through. We don't break our rules in the Senate.
Oh, yeah, it would have been breaking the rules.
So for somebody to take and not object to getting on the committee of the whole and then turn around and try to use that as a political weapon and a gotcha, that's BS.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's
enough. And
enough.
they would have had the votes, I guarantee.
Okay, so he says that's BS. No. What is BS is there were a whole bunch of bills, including House Bill 10, that were not on Senator Slither's list. And so there was plenty of time during that day for the members of the Senate to get through all of those bills. You notice that the one thing that he didn't bring up, he tried to walk through the schedule. Remember, I showed you all of the screens where it says the Senate is in recess until 2:20, until 4:30, until 5 o'clock. So he walks through all those and he tries to say, no, we worked all day. Well, they still had time for a pizza party. So if time was such a big issue, why did Mike Giroux read the reviser's bill word for word on that day? Why was there time for a pizza party with a registered lobbyist in the Senate president's office, which is clearly against the rules? And then to blame it on the entire chamber later, well, nobody objected. Well, it's the majority floor leader that could have brought it up, and it is Dennis Beitman that could have made that bill happen. And if he was unable to, if he couldn't convince Slithers to bring it up, well, that just shows you how ineffectual he actually is. Now, in the end, they did have a vote on House Bill 10, and it failed 13-18. Let me show you who the people that voted against this were. And the nays on House Bill 10, and this is, okay, so this is a trick that they always use. This is actually a procedural vote to bring up House Bill 10 on the 4th, so the day after the deadline. Okay, so essentially this was, hey, we missed this bill, we want to talk about it.
Yeah, this has kind of bend the rules a little bit. This is
it's not
enough.
Okay. So I want to argue about that, because they always say, and you heard Dennis claim, well, we follow the rules in the Senate. It is a rule that if you have 2/3 of a vote, you can bring a bill up after the deadline. Okay, that's in the rules. How do you think that they get the number 2/3? I mean, how do you think that happens? Because it's in the rules. If it's not specifically in the joint rules or the rules of the Senate, then they have Mason's Manual Legislative Procedure, another rule book that they follow. So for Bo Beitman to claim, oh, we follow the rules, that's why we couldn't talk about this, that's a load of horse crap.
Horse crap.
I mean, it really is. And so, again, this is another example of, if you're explaining, you're losing. He's got a room full of constituents that are pretty irritated that apparently now we have to allow pornography in libraries. And he's trying to explain it away. Okay, so there was another attempt made on this very subject, but this one's a little bit different in that here you're going to hear a whole list of bills that also failed along with House Bill 10. Ken, go ahead and play the other soundbite.
Briefly with the library bill dying in the Senate, but I wanted to address some of those other bills that died on the last day of Cow. In the Senate, there were 10 of them. House Bill 84, falsifying election documents. House Bill 10, sexually explicit materials in libraries requirements. House Bill 52, elections hand counting for recounts. House Bill 70, Wyoming Granite Act. House Bill 95, concealed carry colleges and universities. House Bill 117, stop harm and empower women. with informed notices, House Bill 127, voter approval for recreation mill levy, House Bill 147, property tax exemptions, effect of People's Initiative, House Bill 157, protection of parental rights, cause of action, and House Bill 159, safeguarding personal expression at K through 12 schools. Those were the 10 bills that died on the last day of Cow in the Senate, and some of us were pretty disappointed to see that they were not heard by the Senate. They made it through the House, they made it through Senate committees, and then they were shoved to the bottom of the list, as was described a little bit ago. Senator Biden, you mentioned that Majority Floor Leader Nethercott made a motion about 9 o'clock in the evening on that day to rise in a report, I believe is how that motion is entitled. And you mentioned that an objection could be made, but that motion was voted on with ayes and noes, and it passed, the motion passed, and those bills, of course, died in the Senate, didn't get to debate and vote on some bills that I personally, and many others were really disappointed to see that. I wanted to ask you respectfully why you voted for Senator Nethercott's motion to gavel out.
Here
Well,
comes
like
the
I said
excuses.
earlier, I saw the whip sheets on all those bills, and they're all gonna fail. I argued with the majority floor leader. I said, these bills need to be heard.
You believe that?
Let's have the debate, like the House is doing with our bills. Let's have that debate. We can vote them up, vote them down, like I wanted them to hear. I wanted to be able to vote for all. There was a couple bills that you named off that were fundamentally flawed.
Okay, just stop.
Bill sponsors didn't.
So you just heard him say, I wanted to hear him. Well, why did you vote to end the session? Why did you do that? Why didn't you ask Senator Nethercott to bring these bills up? Why is it that all of the really important conservative bills ended up at the bottom of the list? Now, Dennis will have you believe that, well, we knew the vote counts on them. We knew that they weren't going to pass. Well, sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's not. Often a bill comes up, it's debated on the floor, and the result changes. Not all that often, but sometimes it does. But if those bills were important to Dennis Beitman, he would have made it happen, and he didn't. And you'd notice how that a lot of them were election integrity bills. But there's one of them I just want to talk about, and just to show you that they weren't all just, well, these bills are not ready for prime time, or they're not a good idea, or we just wasn't in favor of them. One of them was to prevent a school board from starting a tax on you without a vote. The recreation district one, that's what that would have done, because right now you have school boards that are independently setting up recreation districts, and then they can assess a mill levy that is increase your taxes without a vote. That's what one of those bills was. Another one was, informed consent. The last one that constituent mentioned was to allow free expression in schools. That was the Kylie Wall bill, the one to prevent school administrators from stopping free speech of students. There were a lot of really important bills there. And so to suggest that, maybe they weren't important, but Beitman says we knew the whip counts on them, so we knew they were all going to fail. Okay, well, you're the Senate president. Stop making excuses. Make it happen.
So two things. If it's not ready for prime time, what would it take to get it there? Especially,
what's their job?
Especially things that had been brought 2, 3, 4 years in a row, and this bill's still not ready for prime time. Okay, we did this with the SAPA bill and with the law enforcement personnel. Mm-hmm. Come to the table and let's talk about this. Well, it wasn't going to happen. And the second thing that I think I want to point out, which is an aside to the entire argument, the gal that brought that question, very, very sharp. She's actually an attorney. She's in her 20s. She's a young mother. When you go to political events, you generally see a bunch of gray hairs sitting around.
People like us.
And that's beginning to change. We're starting to see more younger people get involved. And she has a passion for this and an understanding of the procedure far beyond what I ever had in my 20s. Got quite a head start. So I appreciate so many people, and we've had a couple of them in here, but we won't go down that road. Anyway, it was just really refreshing to me to see an engaged public, including some younger folks.
Well, and you notice, if you notice the argument that she made, she lists off all these bills that died. Okay, we could maybe give it to Dennis that a couple of them needed some more work on them. But there again, that's their job. Like if a bill isn't ready for prime time, you're a legislator. It's your job to fix it.
We had several like that. We voted them onto the floor. Go ahead and see what we could do with amendments. In some cases, we were able to make improvements, and in other cases, like in my case, the ESA bill, I was never satisfied with that one. Right. I had voted for it to keep it alive, to try to fix it. Couldn't fix it, voted it down at the end.
Well, and so her question was specifically, Senator Beitman, why did you vote for this motion? Right? Why were you one of the people that voted to go home and leave work undone? That was her question. Now, he never does really answer that question, but there's not that much more of that soundbite to go. Let's go ahead and play the rest of it so that some people can't argue that we're making stuff up.
The Granite Act, for instance, was not going to even be brought up because the bill sponsor knew that was going to need interim work, and it was just not going to be something we're going to even take up. I think one of those other bills that was the informed consent bill, I think, also had problems.
It had just had problems.
Bills in there that had problems that were
Yeah,
not
couldn't do it.
But you're right. There was probably 7 bills in there that I probably would have voted for all 7 of them.
Then why didn't you?
13 of us would have. There just wasn't enough. And that was the fundamental debate with me and the majority floor leader was, do we stay here till 1 in the morning debating bills we know we're going to die just to have a roll call vote on them, or yes, right?
That's what I would like to see, so I guess that's what my question is, why did you vote in favor of her motion instead of your position being, hey, let's stick around and work this out?
Because the vote was, they had the votes. It was a done deal.
They had the votes.
It was over.
Sure, but
Okay, so let's
we are
stop for a
not
minute.
privy to those sides.
Okay, now the first long soundbite we played for you was we didn't have enough time. We ran out of time. We just couldn't get these bills through. There were other things we had to take care of. That was the first soundbite in the middle of the forum. Now the story has changed. Now it's, well, we didn't have the votes and we didn't want to waste anybody's time.
Well,
and you heard the response from the crowd.
When you don't start till noon, it's easy to run out of time.
Exactly. And so, you've got to pay attention to what these people say, because, really, his story changed halfway through. It started out, we didn't have the time to do it. Now it's, well, we didn't have the votes and we didn't want to waste everybody's time. But still, in the end, Dennis is one of the people that voted to go home. All right, let's see if we can finish this up.
Conversations that you have with her, all we have is the video of what's happening on the floor. So all I can see is, yes, I'm voting in favor of Senator Nethercott's, gavel out motion.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, anybody could have been like, no, and we could have done a division, people could have stood up, we would have stayed in committee of the whole. But it was not like that. It was just like, all in favor say aye, it was like, all opposed no, nothing, and we were done.
But there were a few no's, there were a few no's. Okay.
I understand you're upset about it, I am too.
Yeah,
right?
very
And you're
different.
right.
Oh, did you hear him?
But
I'm upset too.
the majority leader does have the responsibility to manage the floor as he or she sees fit and manage the time of the body. And she made that call. That's her call.
Okay, so pause.
She had
So
staff in mind.
To set the scene for you, what's happening is Dennis is explaining, and Agent 29 is standing behind him. So you got to imagine how this whole thing is going on. That constituent is standing up questioning Dennis. Hey, yes, we want a vote on this. And you heard the crowd say, yes, that's what you do. Dennis continues to explain, and Ken is standing behind him. Okay, go ahead and play.
Other people, time in mind, and that's just the way it is. I'm not going to throw her under the bus for that.
Except that that's what you've done the entire time.
I have my reasons for doing things. I stay in my lane when it comes to the duties of the president, she stays in her lane when it comes to the majority.
Yeah.
And that's
Somebody
that's all
else's
there is
fault.
to it.
Making excuses.
A little grace, I just wanted to say this. The House listened to, debated, introduced every bill that came down the hall from the Senate. We stay up to the wee hours. One time we gabbled out at midnight and turn around and start over again the next morning. We did the work, and I'm very proud of what the House.
Okay. So I cut the end off of your comments, Ken, but I got the meat of it. So there's the point. You have one legislator making excuses. We ran out of time. We didn't have the votes. It's the majority floor leader's problem. My friends, these are elected officials, and we expect that they're going to take responsibility for the things that they do. But what you heard last night from Dennis Beitman was a long list of excuses as to why things didn't happen. And all of it is an attempt to deflect blame away from himself and try to get more votes. And that's all that it is. And you gotta imagine this if you would. And I wish I would have taken more pictures, but Joey Correnti took enough pictures for all of us. But you got a room full of constituents, and none of them are really happy with how things turned out. And they continually are asking, why didn't this happen? And then the story changes halfway through and 3/4 of the way through. And then it's never Dennis's fault. Did you hear him accept responsibility one time for what transpired? And the answer to that is no. And so, I mean, it's time for another break. So we'll go ahead and take one, unless you got something to tag on the end of it. All right, so let's go to a break, and we'll continue with the program. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. We're all surprised, Ken. That's right, my friends. Full of surprises this morning. Welcome back to the program. Cowboy State Politics live on a Wednesday. I'm David Iverson. documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. And you know why that is? Because I actually do my homework.
And I'm documented to be very conservative.
Yes, it's true. You are on the top of the heap when it comes to conservatism, much more than the 56.8% of Dennis Beitman voting with the Republicans.
Which means I'm just radical fringe.
You are radical fringe, and so is this program, I hear.
I hope it's that really pretty gold fringe.
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, I got a little gold in my jersey here, maybe it's like that. Well, anyway, my friends, welcome back to the program. There has been quite of a, I don't know what you want to call it, a kerfuffle, a disagreement, a problem for some of the cow pie columnists. One of those, of course, is Gail Simmons. And, and she was on the cow pie this morning trying to explain away one of her columns. And the problem is she has been rebuked by several people, roundly rebuked. And one of those was from and let me just get to it here, one of them from the executive director, I think that's his title, of the Democrat Party. And here's what he wrote an op-ed in the Cow Pie, and this one's entitled, Wyoming Democrats Shouldn't Be Asked to Fix the Republican Party. Now, I don't think that there's any like real Republican that thinks they want anything, the Democrats need to help with anything. If there is an argument to be made, it's that Democrats make our job a heck of a lot easier for us. They get a couple hundred people on the courthouse lawn with Nazi signs and wonderful signs that say F Trump on them. So it's great. But so this piece from the executive director, his name is let's see, what is his name? Down at the bottom here. So his name is Scott Merrifield. He's the executive director of the Wyoming Democrat Party, and he says, and I quote, "Some recent commentary has revived a familiar argument in Wyoming politics that Democrats should consider switching party registration and voting in Republican primaries in order to influence outcomes. It's a position framed as pragmatic, quote, as math, as the most effective way to shape who governs in a state where Republican primaries often decide elections. But there's an important truth missing from that argument. It is not the responsibility of the Democrat Party or Democratic voters to abandon their own party in order to manage or moderate the internal divisions of the Republican Party." And he is right. Democrats ought to stay in their own lane, and redcoats should just go back to the Democrat Party because that's the ones that they're helping anyway. So what Merrifield is referring to is a piece by Gail Simmons that was written on April the 5th. And in it, it's entitled, "In Wyoming, the real election day is August." And let's see if I can find here we go. So there's this section in the piece. And let's see here. I don't want to read too much of this because, frankly, it makes me barf. But here's just a couple paragraphs. Simmons writes, "In 2022, 184 county elected offices appeared on the ballot across Wyoming. Only 9 were decided in a competitive November general election. 7 were decided in Democratic primaries. The other 168 were effectively decided in the Republican primary. That means the offices closest to your daily life, county commissioners, clerks, treasurers, sheriffs, assessors, attorneys, coroners, clerks of court, were mostly settled before the fall campaign even started." Here is the rub of this whole thing. That's why the practical conclusion matters. Putting partisan loyalty aside for a moment, still quoting, "The numbers say that unless you live in Teton or Albany County or you hold strong Democratic convictions, registering Republican and voting in the Republican primary election gives you the greatest opportunity to influence who governs Wyoming. That's not ideology, that's math." So, in other words, Simmons is arguing that Democrats should register as Republicans so that they can participate in the Republican primary. This is what we were talking about yesterday.
Just a side note, she uses the word ideology there.
Yes.
That's important. We're not getting into it now. But if you listen to a lot of the language being used out there, it's common. And ideology is one of their new buzzwords.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, and the reason is they are trying, and the Democrats are so good at using language, but they try to change the meanings of words, the meaning of words, to fit whatever their narrative is at the moment. Simply put, your ideology is your belief system. It's neither good nor bad. It's not a word that naturally has negative connotations to it. Your ideology is your belief system. But the Democrat Party, including Gail Simmons, which I am convinced that she claims that she's been a Republican all her life, but I mean, you read the stuff that she writes, and honestly, she's just a Democrat dressed up as a Republican. But she says, and let me just read this to you again, so we understand clearly what she is arguing. Registering Republican and voting in the Republican primary election gives you the greatest opportunity to influence who governs Wyoming. That's not ideology. In other words, that's not a belief system. That's math. In other words, if you're a Democrat and you want to say in how this state is governed, you have to register as a Republican. That is her argument. Now, Gail Simmons was on Jake the Snake in the Cow Pie this morning. Imagine a snake being, I've never seen a snake kind of try to go through a cow pie, but it happens every morning on the Cowboy State Daily. But anyway, so she's on with Jake in the Cow Pie this morning. And here's what she has to say. Go ahead and play that video for us, Ken. I think it's just called Gail.
Here's the hard truth that I wrote on, and here's some numbers. So, as of January of this year,
nails on a chalkboard.
The total number of from the total number of people that are registered. So these are the people at the beginning of an election year that are registered, and of that, 210,000 are Republicans. There are 30,000, 1/7 of the number, right, are registered Democrat, and a similar amount is registered as unaffiliated or a minor party. So we literally have a major party, the Democrats, that are matched in numbers by unaffiliated and minor parties who can't vote. I mean, they could show up and get a blank ballot, but they have no choices at all in the August election. So to decide that I wanted 31,000 should vote in the Republican Party ignores who actually shows up, which has been my point all along.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's enough of that.
This
so
is
that's her.
The other hard truth.
That's her point all along. That's the hard truth. That's really what I was arguing. Yeah, I don't know, Gail. When you say registering Republican and voting in the Republican primary gives you the greatest opportunity to influence who governs Wyoming, I think it's pretty clear what you're arguing for. For crossover voting, for Democrats registering as Republicans and voting in the primary. That's what she's arguing.
Not protected by the First Amendment, we learned.
Yeah, we learned that is not necessarily, and that's another interesting point. I don't think that court ruling really addresses crossover voting. We already have a law for that, and the Democrats have made, the Democrats and the Redcoats have made a significant effort to get as many people registered in the Republican Party as possible. I mean, there's been a lot of advertising. Hey, here's the deadline to change your party affiliation. Don't forget about that deadline. I mean, that is what they're up to. It's an attempt to get Democrats into the Republican Party.
So I mentioned ideology.
Yes.
And I think, words mean things.
Yes, they do.
Definition here, an ideology is a structured set of beliefs, principles, or values held by a person, group, or society that shapes how they view the world, understand human life, and approach political, economic, and social issues. And the mantra that we're starting to hear now is we don't want to be grounded in ideology. Ideology they're portraying is a bad thing.
Yeah, they're trying to assign negative connotations to it.
You don't want to have principles. You don't want to be guided by that. What you want to do, rather, is to listen to the people and respond to whatever they do. Well, I've been listening to the people pretty closely for about 4 years now, and I'll tell you what, when you listen to the people, you hear a cacophony That's
Yes.
a good word. You hear a cacophony of noise, and every opinion is expressed out there. And so if you have no core beliefs, you're a leaf in the wind.
Yes.
Ideology doesn't matter. I just want to listen to the people and do what's best. You don't even know what is best.
Well, and see, that's their argument. They want people like Julie Jarvis who don't have a rigid belief structure and uses a survey, allegedly uses a survey to determine how she's going to vote. I mean, that's not what people, I don't think that's why we elect folks to go down to Cheyenne or to Washington, D.C. We vote for people that are like us.
Yeah,
That have the same sort of beliefs, the same sort of values, and we vote for them. And the idea being they'll go down and vote the way that I would.
See how many people come out and say, I'm running as a Republican because I'm tired of the ideology fight. And that's essentially when you boil down what they're saying. And my opponent is right in there with them.
Well, and there's so one of my favorite. Let's see if I can get to it here. One of my favorite pieces from Rush Limbaugh is where he's kind of talking about this very thing. And he starts it by saying, I've thought about moderating my program. Here, let's take a listen to this. Check this out.
And then there are those who say, but Rush, you're just too strident. You got to moderate your tone,
Too
too
ideological.
conservative, branch out. You're preaching to the choir. And I thought, well, that makes some sense. I do want to attract an even larger audience. I've had my staff looking in libraries, universities, on the internet all over the country, looking for the historical biographies of great moderates in American history. And we haven't found any. We haven't found one great moderate in this country. Margaret Thatcher, I had the pleasure twice of having dinner with her. She defines a moderate as somebody who doesn't know what they believe. And I don't want to offend you moderates. I know what moderates are. Moderates are people who just don't want to make anybody mad, don't want to offend anybody, sit around and wait and see what most people think, and then do that and say, that's what I think. And then they appear to be in the majority. A moderate never wants to be in the minority because that isn't popular. Now, that's another moderate, back to good and evil.
So he continues from there, and he starts talking about why people vote the way that they do. But in that soundbite, the essential point is a moderate really is somebody that doesn't have any core beliefs that they're not going to budge on.
A moderate is going to only say temperate things that won't offend anybody,
Yes.
won't ruffle anybody's feathers. And I won't name them, but we've seen several people try that approach in the House and in their candidacy.
And it hardly ever works.
And I've chosen the other one, and I'm going to ask you honestly, how did that go last night? Did I come across as a moderate?
Ken, you owned that room. And no, you were not a moderate. But the point here is that the people like Gail Simmons, they don't want folks that are ideologically rigid. That they have she's not arguing for people that believe like 100% that an unborn baby is a human life. Well, there's always exceptions to that, and we can't be too right wing and too rigid about it. We got to have exceptions. What about guns? Well, we can't have just everybody owning a rocket launcher. We have to have common sense gun restrictions. Or what about voting? Well, we can't have voter ID to where you have to prove who you are. These immigrants, they come here and they just want to make a good life, and so they should be able to vote in our elections.
What about porn in libraries?
Porn in
libraries. Kids need a broad.
Yeah. But the list goes on and on. And the truth of the matter is, if you want to be successful in elections, and this is a common theme that I'm hearing, or that a common conversation that I've had with a lot of candidates this season, is, do you know how candidates lose? Candidates lose when they don't believe in anything. When you try to be all things to all people, because it is as transparent as a glass of water, a clear glass of water, water in a, never mind, you get what I'm saying. But it is as transparent as you could possibly get. If you want to lose an election, try to be all things to all people. You know, Ken, I've talked to some of your constituents, some of the, my neighbors who have said, I don't agree with everything that Ken does or says, but at least I know where he stands. And so I'm going to vote for him. And, those conversations have happened, when you're not with me. And let's be honest, 2 hours in the morning is probably all you can handle of me. But,
It's enough.
But, conservatives and Republicans lose when we try to be, all things to all people and vote as the way the wind blows. And like, if you want to win elections, if you want to appeal to everyday common person that does have a core set of beliefs, you've got to take a stand. If you don't believe in something, then you believe in nothing. And voters can see right through it. It's the same thing from that forum last night with Dennis.
Yeah, I don't want to constantly be looking over my shoulder. What did I say last week? Who's in the room? Can I say this? Can I not say that? I'm just going to tell the truth.
Yeah, and that's all you have to do. But to suggest that, well, there were so many reasons why we couldn't get that bill through. Well, that's not why we elected you in the first place. We elected you to go there and to take a stand and vote on things that we care about.
And the inept lunacy of the Freedom Caucus stayed there and fought the good fight hour after hour. Well, we had to listen to lunacy on the other side.
Yeah,
and
all the excuses. As that other constituent put it, we are tired of years worth of excuses. Go there, get the job done, period.
There was one other thing, and I'm not going to mention Marilyn Connolly's name.
I don't want to mention any names, Marilyn Connolly.
But she talked about trying to be responsible, fiscally conservative, and and she laid those things out. All of the additions that she voted for to add to the budget totaled $1.2 billion. I went through and I pulled them.
$1.2 billion.
Billion dollars.
Well, if you listened to her last night, she was the most Republican thing since, me. And the truth is that Marilyn Connolly, she went full-blown Democrat during the session. There were lots of times where I'd look at the people sitting beside me in the gallery and say, I think that she just went full-blown Democrat and didn't even care about being a Republican.
I should say this to her credit. She kind of pulled me aside last night, and she said, and I believe she was sincere, as sincere as you can get with somebody like that. And she said, I want to thank you for all the hard work you guys did, especially in appropriations. She said, I may not agree with what you did, but you guys worked hard. Well, I appreciate that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess recognition of your work, but she certainly didn't vote. I mean, she voted against pretty much everything that the Joint Appropriations Committee did.
There were about, I forget the number. I want to say 250, but I'm sorry that it just escapes me at the present. Amendments to add money, and she voted for all but 9 of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, there were so many times where I watched her voting and I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe that. So Marilyn Connolly, if we go to evidence-based Wyoming, she ended up, where was she? Okay, so there she is. Number 46 out of 62 on the list of conservatives, according to evidence-based Wyoming, which means that she voted with the Republican Party 27.4% of the time. For the person that stood up last night with a copy of the Republican Party platform and talked about it at length, she certainly didn't vote that way.
While you're there, how often did I vote with the Democrats? I don't even know.
Oh, well, Ken, so, well, at 0.8% of the time. Yeah, weird. So, I mean, the difference being is that you either believe in something or you believe in nothing. And, if you're one of those people in the middle and you're voting the way the wind blows, voters can tell that.
By definition, I am ideologically driven and will continue to do so, and you can bank on it.
Yeah, well, and that's the way that you win elections.
How much do I owe you now for the loan?
You owe that. I've got a tab going over here. Anyway, my friends, well, we're a little bit early. Let's go ahead and take our third break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the program. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Living rent-free in every redcoat's head. Gotta tell you, my friends, it's a fun morning on the program. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This program is getting bigger every day. And make sure that you like and follow and forward the link to all the Cowboy State politics programs to all your pals. We want to grow this audience as much as we can. And, I mean, it's already growing faster than I ever thought it would. And so thank you very much for that. The interesting thing about socialists, Ken, is now they're all out in the open. Well, I shouldn't say all of them, but some of them are out in the open. It used to be that if you were a socialist, you kind of kept that stuff, behind closed doors, and you didn't want people to know about it. You kept your copy of Mao's Little Red Book hidden on the bookshelf, and you didn't want your dinner guests to see it.
KOKs.
Yeah, KOK's a good example. We're going to cover that on tomorrow's program. He sent out emails that say "Turn Fremont Blue." We always knew that KOK's was a redcoat, and now he's just kind of out in the open with it. But we'll cover that on tomorrow's program. But there is another prominent socialist that, and wait, before we play that, I wish that we would have thought ahead and got Troy McEwen on the phone. Senator Troy McEwen, he actually owns a grocery store in Gillette. And I think he could have contributed to this segment and given us an idea of how much it costs to set up a grocery store. How much do you think, Ken?
I honestly don't know what it would cost to set up a grocery store. I have set up other businesses, and I know that inventory and everything is expensive. One of the interesting things about grocery is the margin is so thin.
Yeah, most people think that, you walk into the grocery store and the prices are high, and the easy refrain is, oh, they're price gouging. Well, the truth is the profit margin in a grocery store is actually pretty low, and it's for one very important reason, is that there is almost always competition.
Yeah.
So take Buffalo, for example. Buffalo, there are two grocery stores. There's the, it used to be called the IGA, and then there's another one that's on West 4th Street. But you really have to shop at both of them because one thing you might get a deal at the IGA, and the other one, well, that product might be a little bit more expensive, but you'll find other things there. And so the two stores are competing. And if one grocery store jacks their prices through the roof, well, everybody's going to go to the other one. The same holds true in Sheridan, though Sheridan's a little bit different because you've got the Walmart, there's the Albertsons, and then there's the, Ridley's is the old Safeway. So there's multiple options in Sheridan. There's a couple of smaller, there's the meat store that's up on North Main. So there are a couple of other options. But all of them, the margin is not that big. We're talking like within 2%, sometimes 3%, depending on what the product is. But you don't make a lot of money unless, of course, your grocery store is backed with, it's not going to make any money. But if you've got a couple of $1 million to throw around, well, you can set up any grocery store that you want. Here is our pal Zoran Mamdani, our favorite socialist, talking about his grocery stores. Listen to this.
Socialists make promises. We go after it and get it.
Yeah, go get it. Get it, Ken. Get it.
So let us look forward to the next promises we will keep. This evening, I am proud to make 3 transformative announcements.
Transformative.
First, we're going to make it easier for New Yorkers to put food on the table.
Yes. Listen to the crowd.
Since the pandemic, grocery prices have gone up and they haven't come back down.
Yeah. See, that's
we
totally
feel it every single time we go to the store.
Every day.
Between 2013 and 2023, grocery prices increased in New York City by nearly 66%.
And why is that?
Significantly higher than the national average.
Yeah.
During our campaign, we promised New Yorkers that we would create a network of 5 city-owned grocery stores, 1 in each borough.
Yes. That's what we need to do.
Today, we make good on that promise. I am proud to announce that we will open every single one of these stores by the end of our first term.
No.
And the first one will open next year. Stores where prices are fair, where workers are treated with dignity, and where New Yorkers can actually afford to shop.
Actually afford to shop there.
At our stores, eggs will be cheaper.
Eggs are going to be cheaper. Milk is going to be cheaper. And bread, Ken, bread will be affordable.
Goody.
But do you know how much he's spending on this?
I have no idea.
You see, it's the real problem
He's
is
spending nothing.
Well, see, you caught me.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, you stole my thunder. Well, so according to I believe this was in the Federalist, maybe. Okay, I don't know where it's at. But socialist New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani's first government-owned grocery store is set to open in East Harlem, and it will cost taxpayers a whopping $30 million. Mamdani revealed the plan during a party for his first 100 days in office, and the grocery store plan was just one of those campaign promises. He unveiled his grocery store initiative on Sunday and announced that all 5 planned municipal markets would launch before his term concludes in late 2029. Quote, during our campaign, we promised New Yorkers that we would create a network of 5 city-owned grocery stores, 1 in each park, Mamdani said. Today, we're making good on that. Well, it ignores the reason why grocery prices are so high to begin with. Well, groceries are a commodity. Every single one of them is. And it takes money to produce a commodity, whether it's eggs or sugar or flour or whatever. I mean, it costs money to produce that product. And when government gets in the middle of things and starts printing money, your money becomes worth less, meaning that there's so much money floating around in the market that the individual dollar you have isn't worth as much as it was, the day before or the month before. And the reality is, in the past year of the Biden administration, your savings account lost around 15% of its value. And it's no more complicated than this. So, Ken, let's say you have 5 apples. And I say, Ken, those apples look pretty tasty. Can I have one of them? And you might look at me and say, no, because that one apple, I was hoping to get your common answer to just about every question. But you might say,
I have to remain somewhat unpredictable.
Yeah, well, okay, fair enough. So Ken would say, no, David, you see that one apple, it represents 20% of my total apple supply. And so it's pretty valuable to me. So I don't think that I can just give you one of my apples. Now, Ken, if you had 100 apples, you've got a couple bushels sitting there, and you're about sick of looking at all the apples you have filling up your wife's kitchen. And I say, Ken, you have 100 apples, and they look tasty, and they look just amazing to eat. Can I have one of them?
Go buy your own.
Well, that's probably what Ken would say. But he's more likely to give me one because that one apple only represents 1% of his total apple supply. The same holds true for money. If Ken only has $5 and I say, Ken, can I have one of them? He's going to be like, man, that's 20% of all the money I have. It's a totally different story. If he's got 100 of them in his pocket, he's going to say, well, that $1, it's not as valuable because I've got more of them. Same holds true for money printing. When the government prints more money, there's more dollars available, which means that in order to make as much money, you have to raise your prices because your money is worth less. And so the reason that the cost of goods in your grocery store has gone up is because of all the money printing. It's called inflation. So the rise in grocery prices is not a result of somebody arbitrarily saying we're going to raise the price of eggs in a grocery store. Troy McEwen does not sit around every morning and say, I think I can gouge people on a gallon of milk. He looks at his bottom line and says, this is what I need to charge.
Pop-Tarts, that's where you make the money.
Yeah, I bet so. But when government gets involved and dumps $30 million into a grocery store, what is that going to do to the price of groceries elsewhere? It's going to drive them up because there's $30 million that just got dumped into the market and artificially jacked with the prices.
There's another even more cynical side of this, and let's say that he's successful and these grocery stores operate for a while.
He won't be.
And for the sake of argument.
Fair enough.
And the other competition can't survive, and so they go out of business.
Okay.
Now the people of New York are wholly dependent upon government to provide food. What happens when government fails? And it will.
It always does.
What happens? It's going to get pretty ugly.
It is going to get pretty ugly, but not according to Mom Donnie.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. If our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it.
The warmth of collectivism. Well, the truth is that Zoran Mamdani should have paid attention to what has happened with his plans in other states. For example, in Kansas City, they had a very similar idea, and they thought, why the heck not open up a government-run grocery store? That way we can control the prices. And it went belly up. They could not keep the shelves full of groceries. They could not artificially control the prices because the prices aren't controlled by any one politician. It's controlled by the market. And the free market always, it always works. And when you try to monkey with it, it drives prices up, it creates inflation, and your plan is going to fail. It's failed every other time. And the ignorance of socialists never ceases to amaze me. And every single time you hear, well, let's dump more money into this, it's going to create a better product. You hear that in Wyoming, we hear that a lot with education. And that was a big topic of conversation last night. How much money do we spend on education? Well, Tom Kelly brought up that New York, they spend roughly $35,000 a year per student, and their scores are no better than ours, and
Well,
ours are not good.
And what I
either.
don't know about New York, that number either, does that include transportation or not? Those are some of those things that I know, because some people say, well, that's a lot more than Wyoming spends, which is right at 20,000. But that doesn't include the buildings. That doesn't include the transportation.
Yes, so
So
that
I,
is.
I honestly don't know.
I don't either. But the point Kelly was making last night is New York spends a heck of a lot more than we do, almost 50% more, and their test scores are still pretty mediocre. We spend north of $20,000 a student, and our scores are pretty mediocre. Half the kids in this state can't read at a proficient level, and that's it is absolutely it is inexcusable that we refuse to teach our kids the basic things, and then we say that the argument that the solution to all of it is let's spend more money. Well, that never works. It doesn't work in grocery stores. It doesn't work in education. It doesn't work in private business. If you do not attack the source of the problem, you are not going to fix. I mean, your solution is not going to work. I mean, government is always searching for the solution to their last fix.
I made a point last night, which I think is pretty valid, or
I'll be the judge of that.
I wouldn't have made it. But the point was, if you take a societal ill and you pose that question to a candidate or to a legislator, and you say, what's the answer to this problem? And let's say you come up with 6 problems.
Okay.
If consistently their answer is another government program,
they are
and more
not.
money, they are not conservative. Government is not the answer to everything.
Government is not the solution to our problems.
Yeah, if you think it is, you get good luck with that.
Well, and you bring up, and I think you made the point aptly last night in saying that, look, if the answer is more money, if the answer is another government program is, well, we could spend more money over here, or none of those things are conservative. The answer is personal responsibility and allowing the free market to operate the way that it was intended. Anytime you start screwing around with the free market, it drives prices up. It decreases the amount of jobs that are available, simply because people that refuse to compete with the government, which you really can't. You can't compete with somebody that has an unlimited checkbook. Whatever your solution is going to fail. And I mean, there is no exception to that. And whether it is government-run grocery stores or it is Wyoming education, if you're not fixing the source of the problem, you're not going to do that. So let's talk about. We've got about a little bit more than 15 minutes left. Let's talk about an actual solution to a lot of the things that we've been discussing. There's a piece in the Federalist, and this one's entitled "American Youth Are Returning to the Church, but They Need Encouragement to Keep Them There." Now, the question is, why are America's youth returning to the church? I would posit that one of the reasons they are returning to the church is they have just lived through years, almost a decade, of uncertainty, where the things that were solid truths were called into question. That men cannot become women and women cannot become trout. Those are fundamental truths that every person walking the face of the earth knows. And whether you are one of these people that you're mentally ill and you think you can become something that you're not, you too know the truth. You're just avoiding it. But a lot of younger people, they lived through COVID. Their schools are failing them. You have a government that says, that was very, very liberal, that said, well, hey, we throw more money at a problem and we have to fight climate change. And they're realizing that those things that they were told are true really aren't. And so younger people are seeking truth elsewhere. And a lot of them are going to the church. Because there is one fundamental truth in the world, and that is God and Jesus Christ.
They've had years of relativism.
Yes.
And, what do you think the answer should be, Johnny?
Well, it depends on your situation.
And they're out there trying to find something solid to hold on to. They're trying to develop some ideology. That's what they're lacking, is something that they can build their life on. And it's no surprise to me that after floating around in a public education system that says everything is relative, there is no truth,
Yeah.
that people are going to look for truth.
And if there are no absolutes, and if there are no truths, and it's the picture I have in my mind is, Ken, you're a carpenter. You know, if you try to build a house on a beach without laying a foundation, your house is going to crumble pretty quickly.
I've got another analogy that I'm glad you mentioned that. If you go by the old Opera House in Sheridan, they're building a new building, an addition to it.
Okay.
And fortunately, the guy that is doing it right. He's trying to make it look like it should. And so he's using some old style building techniques and whatnot. But they've got in front of there a couple of arched windows. Now, they framed this thing. They ordered the arched windows from somewhere. The windows come in and they fit in the hole. And then they ordered this facade piece that looks like old granite or sandstone blocks, and it goes up, perfectly fits around the outside. The way that works, obviously, is there is a standard to which everyone agrees. 1 inch is 1 inch, 12 inches is 12 inches, 60 inches is 5 feet. That standard is agreed upon, and so you can have somebody working in a whole nother country, and you build something here and know that when that thing goes, it's going to fit where it's supposed to fit,
right,
as long as the workmanship is there. But that standard is the important thing, and that's what we're looking for, is something that we all agree upon. This is true. Male and female created he, them.
Yes.
Little things like that.
Yeah, and I think that is precisely what younger people are searching for, a truth. Here's what the Federalist says. Quote, the late James Q. Wilson wrote in 2002 that the right and best way for a culture to restore itself is for it to be rebuilt, not from the top down by government policies, but from the bottom up by personal decisions. On the side of that effort, we can find the churches, or at least many of them. Many of them, are playing around with this woke nonsense. And the common experience for adults is the essence of marriage is that it is not sex or money or even children. It is commitment. Now, nearly a quarter century later, new evidence shows that young adults, tired of digital isolation and cultural cynicism, and desiring authentic faith and community, are flocking back to the churches. A few weeks ago, the New York Times reported that on the wave of people, many of them young adults, returning to the Catholic Church, despite decades-long cultural attacks on that institution. Quote, in our age of uncertainty and in our age of great anxiety is a thirst and hunger for God and stability that faith brings to people's lives, said the Archbishop Mitchell Thomas Rosansky of St. Louis. In addition, the overall percentage of Generation Z identifying as Christian reportedly has risen from 45% in 2023 to 51% in 2025. So a small increase, but an increase nonetheless. As Rosansky noted, these young adults are thirsty and hungry for God and the stability that faith brings in a world of increasing chaos. This is encouraging because it is faith that gives people purpose, makes men strong and compassionate leaders, provides protection for women and children, and makes America steadfast and vibrant. It is faith that brings us together as a nation rather than it being all about me and the increased mantra of secularization that drives us into individual tribes seeking to glorify self over others. America was built on civic groups and organizations such as churches, and without a rock solid foundation, such as a local religious body to attach to, people become morally, emotionally, and physically adrift. And see, that is, I think that is the reason why, is that you have a whole generation of people that they've been told that there are no absolutes, that you can be whomever you say you are, that we've had an entire generation of education that is focused on self-esteem, that it is all about you, that it is not about your community or your family or anything, that it is all self-centralized, And that isolates you. So if everything is about you and nothing is about your community, then by definition, you isolate yourself, and it does become all about you. And then you wonder why you're not able to build successful relationships or a successful family or a successful business, because you're not looking at the bigger picture. And so I think the reason why young people are flocking to the church, and I think after Charlie Kirk's death, that was an amazing increase in, I don't know about church membership, but certainly a lot of people started going to church. And I commonly refer to this conversation I had right after Charlie Kirk's memorial. I was just talking to a random person on X, and she told me, for the very first time today, I bought a Bible. Well, the question is why? Why did that person I was talking to make a decision that day to go buy a Bible? Well, because they were searching for something that is true. You had this innocent person, Charlie Kirk, who was killed by a maniac, and and the only reason we have to explain it is the guy is nuts and didn't like what Charlie Kirk had to say. Well, I mean, that creates a situation in where there is no meaning. I mean, the guy didn't do anything to get shot, and yet here he is dead. So the question is, how do we find meaning in a world of uncertainty, of individualized self-esteem, of individual self-interest? Well, where do you find meaning in that? Well, it's the church. And I firmly believe that's what's happening. Even in our own little church, we've seen an increase in attendance, an increase in our Bible studies, which we've got one tonight. And a really encouraging thing for me is that group has grown. Our Bible study started out with only a few of us, half a dozen most of the time, to now, I mean, it's much larger. And so is the congregation, and I'm sure the same holds true for just about every other church or body of believers. There's a lot of people that they don't worship inside a building. They hold a worship service in their house. And Jesus said, wherever two or more of you are there, I'm with you. So the church is not a building. The church is a group of believers. And the reason why you're seeing people flock to it is mostly due to this self-isolation. And when you are isolated, it is very difficult to find meaning in anything. And so that's what I think. Why I think that church membership is exploding. What say you, Agent 29?
I think it's the yummy communion bread.
Our communion bread is not yummy. It is unleavened.
As it should be.
As it should be, right. Except at our wedding. I took a lot of flack for that. So at our wedding, my beautiful bride wanted us to take communion together. And so I said, well, I will take care of the bread. And I made one of the prettiest loaves of bread I've made in a long time. I really enjoy making bread. I've got a Dutch oven. It really gives me joy. So anyway, I make this beautiful loaf of bread. And the pastor, and I believe you too, Ken.
Said, I had to get in on it.
Tried to chastise me and say, now it's supposed to be unleavened bread. And I correctly, I was absolutely dead on when I said, no, Agent 29, at that day, his name was Ken. I said, no, Ken. Ole Natwick, the pastor that I grew up with, who's since passed away, communion bread was a beautiful loaf of bread that he made himself. I said, so the loaf of bread we are taking communion with today is a loaf that I made, and do not try to compete with Ole Natwick.
So the leaven represents sin.
Yes.
And you went ahead and you had your leaven, and I pray for your marriage every day, and I will remind you, when we walked up to the church building, what was up in the trees above us?
Turkey vultures.
Yep.
The turkey vultures were watching.
See, the wages of sin, the leaven, is death.
Yep.
And they were there.
Yep.
So.
And it's, my dad commented on it. He said, hey, look what's up in the trees. Of course, Ken had already pointed it out. And I said, only at my wedding would you have the turkey vultures watching. Of course, a reference to the one of the pieces of the Wyoming media, of course. Well, that'll about do it for today's installment of the broadcast. If you missed part of today's program, I'm going to republish it for the podcast today. So stick around and tell your friends. Make sure that you forward the links to Cowboy State Politics to everybody that you know. We want to grow this podcast, this program.